one line, what is the problem that you're looking to solve?
We are looking to solve retinopathy of prematurity with a peptide that will halt pathologic reactive oxygen species generation. And when you're on vacation, you have to bring your laptop and you have to be checking your emails. And it's unfortunate, but this is just the name of the game.
And talk to people, and who knows, one person may know somebody who may know somebody who will be able to invest and who is thinking in the same breath as you are. How much money are you expected to make in 2024?
If everything was perfect, right, and we fully commercialized P-Nectide, I would say that the company Shapiro would be worth billions. So as an equity holder, I would be definitely making a pretty penny off of that.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Umer Khan. I have Laura Shapiro, who has a JD here with me, and she's the founder of Xipiro. Laura, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Umer. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your podcast. I'm really looking forward to telling you about my life story and the company that I founded, Shapiro Inc.
Excellent. And I'm actually excited because I've read up a little bit about what you're doing and what your experience is. And I definitely want to know, you have a JD, but you seem to be into healthcare. I want to ask that question a little bit later. But what specific problem or challenge that you are looking to address?
So Shapiro has developed a technology called P-Nectide. It is a peptide and it acts as a reactive oxygen species generation inhibitor. So the problem that we're currently trying to solve, our lead indication, is in retinopathy of prematurity. We are trying to completely obliterate the disease as it is and protect preemie babies going forward in the future from blindness and other debilitating indications of this disease.
Excellent. So this is an interesting aspect that you're going into. Do you personally have a background in this? Given that you have a JD, how are you able to manage this?
Oh, so that's a really good question. I actually do not have a science background, which I regret every day now that I'm more into the healthcare field. However, I fell into innovation during law school. I joined our law schools at University of Chicago, their innovation clinic, during my third year, and I fell in love with startup culture as well as medtech and biotech at large.
All right, great. So one thing that, of course, I'm a physician, but one thing for the general public, what specific target population is this? What's the age group, and what is the demographics for this ailment that you're looking to work on?
So 1 in 10 babies in the U.S. are born premature, and of those 10%, about 1.3% of them are born extremely premature. This is our primary population that we are targeting as we believe that we can use P-Nectide prophylactically. So the baby doesn't even need to get retinopathy of prematurity for our peptide to be applicable. Instead, we want to make sure that they are at high risk, but that will be our initial disease population. And once we capture the US market, we'll look more globally. And again, the global standards are not too different. It's still about 1 in 10 babies that are born prematurely.
All right, excellent. So before diving into all the details, what type of initial results are you looking at, or how valid, or what is the yardstick that you're measuring the outcomes with?
So what we're measuring the outcomes with right now is in our animal model data. Our best animal model data comes from the retinitis of prematurity mouse model. And when we get into a phase 1 clinical trial, which is our goal right now, our primary outcomes will be efficacy and safety. Typically safety, but we'll gain some efficacy results just because of how the drug works.
All right. So, which stage of testing? What is the current value or validation that you have right now?
So our current value, our current market value, we are valuing our startup at 10 million because this peptide has been studied over the last 20 years via NIH grants of upwards of $10 million, either through R01 grants or SMART grants. We also have an initial investment of 500,000 from a high net worth individual.
All right, excellent. So this is fairly exciting. And uh, what is the implication, and how many people, how many kids, how many infants that are looking to benefit from this in the event that this definitely comes to fruition?
It's a relatively small population size, which is why Shapiro will be going after orphan drug designation and priority review voucher via the FDA. However, the implications of P-nectide go far further than just retinopathy of prematurity. We are a reactive oxygen species generation inhibitor, and so we have multiple disease indications that we're hoping to explore, including oncology, anemia, retinopathy, and obesity, as well as a few others. So the implications for the drug are immense. We think that it's a real game changer in the healthcare space at large to allow people to live longer and healthier lives.
Excellent. So the question that usually comes to mind when you're looking at anything from the medical aspect is, what are the other current solutions, or are there any solutions that are worthwhile, or what are you actually looking to compete against, or what results are you looking to beat or cross with your solution?
So we're not going toe to toe with our main competitor as of yet, but we're really looking at anti-VEGF. So with retinopathy of prematurity specifically, the current treatment options are laser ablation, removal of the vitreous, and or anti-VEGF. And so there's really a need for a safer and less invasive treatment option. With anti-VEGF in general, although the technology is obviously incredible, there seems to be, the longer it's used, there seems to be less effect over time. But beyond that, there's also a few implications to anti-VEGF, such as neovascularization that P-nectide doesn't promote when it's used in treatment.
No, excellent. You mentioned the mode of delivery. So currently, and especially for adults, there are intravitreal or intra-eye injections for people who may not be aware of these terms.
Yes.
So how is going to be the mode of delivery that you are envisioning? And this is truly interesting, and especially for that infant population,
Mhm.
if it works, this is going to be groundbreaking. And definitely, the gift of sight is probably one of the best gifts that you can ever give anybody.
Absolutely. We intend P-nectide to be used as an intraocular injection. And unlike anti-VEGF, we don't have a timetable in which the injections will occur. We believe that for retinopathy of prematurity, this will be a one-shot deal, and then it will ameliorate the implications ROP may have already done on the infant while also halting the disease.
Great. So in this drug discovery, do you have any tech issues? How are you finding it? A lot of people are using AI to be able to home in and trying to tease out molecules that are not useful compared to that could be potentially useful, and
Mhm.
have a more of a predictive analysis. What is the process that that you guys are applying?
So we aren't using AI right now. Right now, we're mostly focused on getting through our IND enabling studies. We are doing a very traditional route of both fundraising as well as business development. And so, really, the goal is just to get this drug into people in order to see if our hypothesis is correct, which we strongly believe it is because of our animal model data. But beyond that, our preliminary toxicology data has been very, very good, and we believe it's a very, very safe drug.
Great, excellent. So, when it comes to animal models, how did you go about selecting an animal model, and at what point do you feel was the sort of the eureka moment that yes, we believe that we are onto something here?
So this would not be fair for me to take credit for this at all. I'm going to have to give credit to Dr. Shapiro and my late godfather, Dr. Zijin Shea. They were the true co-inventors of P-nectide. And as I mentioned before, this has been studied over 20 years and published in over 100 peer-reviewed journals from Dr. Shea and Dr. Shapiro's labs regarding either P-nectide, reactive oxygen species, or the sodium pump. And therefore, the retinitis of prematurity was really just another animal model in which Dr. Shea wanted to look at. However, our eureka moment came around 2019 when Dr. Shea and Dr. Shapiro realized what they had been sitting on, what they had been experimenting with, and they knew that it was time to take it to the next step of commercialization. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Shea ended up being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and so the mission became all that more important in order to get this out into market.
No, that's pancreatic cancer. That's a tough one. Talking about the elderly, possibly. So neovascularization, and this definitely affects people who are elderly. Not these days. You have diabetes, high blood pressure. You don't need to be that old. Have you explored implications for potential the older population?
Absolutely. So, in the retinitis diseases, we have done significant research with wet macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy, which we believe pnectide could be useful for. That is also why we're targeting retinopathy of prematurity, because that phase one data can be applicable towards the other two diseases that I just mentioned. Beyond that, we have strong indications in oncology, and we believe that we have the ability to again match up with the anti-VEGF drugs, if not outcompete them in the oncology field. So for the elderly population, we think that this will be just as useful as for the very young, the premature babies.
All right, so I want to step back a little bit, and I'm actually very thrilled about the potential for this, and not just for the, of course, the infant and the neonatal population, but also for the elderly and diabetes, high blood pressure. These are the most common causes of vision and sight loss in the elderly, especially in the developing world.
Yes.
And so this is amazing. If you definitely have so much research behind this. Just to step back a little bit, you had a JD. What happened? Can you talk us through a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I went to the University of Chicago with the mindset that I would practice international law, which I ended up doing. I worked with the UN for my first summer, and then I worked with a Hong Kong firm my second summer and did a 3 month stint in Hong Kong doing debt capital markets. I was definitely not feeling as fulfilled as I thought I would be. And I was actually at the point when I got back from my summer internship where I thought about dropping out of law school altogether. I ended up joining our innovation clinic, as I mentioned, my third year, and that's where it all went wrong. I fell in love with the idea of medtech and biotech and these companies that were trying to push forward technology that would make not only money but human life better. And serendipitously, at the same time, that was around when my when Dr. Shapiro and Dr. Shea decided to commercialize pnectide. I was invited to join as a consultant, and I really grew to love the group that I was working with. Our CEO and our VP are two ex-McKinsey serial entrepreneurs, very well established in the industry, and I knew that I wanted to learn from them. But beyond that, push forward this innovation that my father and my godfather had spent their whole lives researching and creating. And so I knew that when I graduated, that would be the path I was taking instead of the traditional law path.
No, excellent. And definitely, you probably have more skills with regards to legals when bringing something to market, possibly, I would think, and its implications and how to pursue it legalistically and potentially from the marketing standpoint, how certain drugs need to be, enhanced and promoted. How does this really emotionally affect you? And it seems you definitely have a strong belief based on solid evidence. How does it really affect you? You said being a lawyer or working in law wasn't really fulfilling. How is this actually relating with you at a personal level?
So while I think that my JD is useful in that it allows me to understand the business world from a different perspective than a traditional MBA or PhD or MD, I really have moved away from legal and more into operations. This affects me personally because not only is it a family project, the evidence is just simply too good to keep in academia. And I've really grown to understand that over the last few years working as the head of operations. And so it fulfills me in knowing that once this gets out there, it's going to be a real game changer for the human population and living a long and healthier life.
No, great. So, since you have stepped into this field, I'm presuming this is your first venture into healthcare, or at least into the startup world. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I did work with a few other startups during my time at the Innovation Clinic, and I just recently completed an internship with the Cedar Sinai Accelerator as an operations associate for their Class 9 cohort. But Shapiro is definitely something that is a first for me, and I'm learning new lessons and discovering new details that I wish I had known prior every day.
Excellent. So this leads to a question. As an aspiring entrepreneur, what advice would you give health tech or health entrepreneurs who are just looking to start out, who are just looking to take that one step forward? What piece of advice would you think you would give, and especially for the female folks out there,
Mhm.
and especially you are going into the sciences, and normally ladies may not be that inclined to such endeavors, especially in the sciences of this nature. What advice would you have for them?
I think that's a really excellent question. And this may be cliche, but the one piece of advice that I can give is once you're in, don't ever give up. There's going to be a million hurdles that come at you. And there's going to be many times where you think, oh, we should shut down. This is not going to work. Ignore those instincts and keep pushing forward. Keep knocking on doors until one of them opens. That is absolutely the only advice I think that a young female entrepreneur needs when she enters this field. Because if she knows that she is going to dedicate herself and dedicate her life to this journey, then she will end up being successful. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but eventually it will give.
Great. No, that is definitely you just have to keep at it.
Yes,
The more you get into it, the more you learn.
exactly.
And I realized when I was going into health tech myself, I had no idea about technology. I was just a physician, and I was just seeing, okay, I want to make a medication reminder application. I want to go into telemedicine,
Mhm.
and I had no idea. Then I learned all the basics of technology. And although it was you could call this a male tech field, but of course that's probably is not the best way to say it. But I had no clue. A regular medical physician type individual, but I went into tech, and I had to. The learning curve was steep, but the more you stick into it, the more you persevere, the more you talk to people and take notes, and maybe
Yes.
a few classes on the side, and maybe a few classes on the side. I think it's possible. And if you have the will, you have the vision, and you have the motivation, and you have a goal and aim and perspective to look forward to achieving a certain type of success. That's not just for yourself, of course. You are providing benefit, and you are looking to solve huge problems that do need a bit of solving. I think
Exactly.
you hit the nail on you hit the nail properly, and the hammer hit properly. I don't know if I got that correct.
But on that note, I think that you also have a great piece of advice in there. It is so important to build out your network. You should be going to conferences. You should be making connections. And the connections may not seem like they're that valuable at the time, but you just don't know what's going to happen a few months down the line. You really don't. So talk to as many people as you can. Get mentorship. Again, join conferences, join side classes so that you can continue to build up your skills. I'm not going to lie and say that being an entrepreneur is easy. It's time consuming, it's life consuming, but it's so worth it.
No, exactly. And even if you have hurdles, you know there is a process. For example, if I want to ask you this question, that you are into drug discovery and you are into introducing a new drug in a way to the market, and you probably have an idea. You probably didn't have a clear idea when you started out about the regulatory issues that you may end up experiencing or going through, but that is just part of the process that you have to go through. But just if you can share with me, you had any regulatory issues, and are you in line to take the next step forward, filling out those applications, getting those responses back? How is this happening, and what has been your understanding and issues with these, if any?
So regulatory issues, we luckily have not had too many of those. We have excellent outside counsel, which again I would recommend if you are starting a startup. You should always have good external counsel, and it doesn't really matter how much you utilize them. When you're utilizing them, it's going to be for important work. But with the regulatory landscape at large, I'm sure as we go through our IND enabling studies and get cleared for a phase 1, there will be more problems that come down the road. However, I think that it's important again and for me personally, I'm going to be taking some more classes on regulatory affairs just so I'm prepared as we go forward and start interacting with these bodies.
No, excellent. So speaking of this, phase 1 trials, are you in touch with the medical community, or at least are there groups of families where the infants are affected? And are you in touch with the community who will be eventually be part of the studies, as well as down the line, people who will need these type of treatments? Or what is the time frame that you're looking at for this?
Yes, very much so. That again, that comes from doing networking from conferences. We have some great ophthalmology advisors, and we're adding on a neonatologist advisor. But we're also in a few different organizations and chats discussing premature infants and premature healthcare as well as maternal healthcare. So that's very, very important to make sure that you know the audience that you're going to be selling to at some point. I would say that our timetable, we are looking to finish our IND enabling studies by the end of 2024 and hopefully finish a successful phase one by the end of 2026. I'm going to say that our proposed entry into market will happen sometime around 2030. It's very important for people to be aware that medtech and pharmacology, while very, very interrelated, are a little different in their timetables. It takes a while to get a therapeutic to market as opposed to traditional medtech, which could be 2 to 4 years and then you're on market.
No, okay, excellent. Just to think on this, I'm not fully aware of how many premature infants will have retinal problems or
Mhm.
retinopathy. Do you have a number on that? And is there any current screening process for premature infants? And at what age of gestation do you have to go for a screening if there is one? If you have any information, if you don't know about, you don't have information on that, that's okay. But just wondering if for the benefit of our viewers, if somebody does have a premature infant, what should they be looking at from this standpoint at least?
Absolutely. We can't tell exactly which infants are going to get retinopathy of prematurity. However, there are some significant biomarkers that we can look at. So, for example, we at Shapiro are looking at infants who are born below 32 weeks gestation, but then also below 3 pounds. And so those are considered very premature infants or extremely premature infants. It makes up about 1.9 to 2% of the premature infant population in the United States. And
Okay,
we're
that
hoping to use penectide as a prophylactic measure. So we want to be able to cover that entire infant demographic prophylactically because you just don't know exactly which ones will get that disease. But we think that because it's so safe and because the toxicology reports that we have are so good, that it could be a standard of care.
exactly. And if you mentioned that amount, that is still a significant amount. I'm not sure how many infants births there are every single year,
So it's
but
about 300,000 infants in the US that are born prematurely. And of that, 1.3 to 2% of those infants are moderately, very premature to extremely premature.
so definitely that ends up to be around 3,000 at least.
Yeah,
So
well,
that
and I think my numbers are a little bit off. So we're looking at around a 16,000 initial market population.
okay, great. So you mentioned about safety and efficacy. Are these type of injections routinely performed in the infant population?
They are routinely performed with anti-VEGF for these infants with retinopathy of prematurity. Our toxicology screenings have been really excellent thus far. And so even though intraocular injection is relatively uncomfortable, especially for a delicate premature infant, the upside definitely outweighs the downside. And because we're in a one-shot injection, we believe it will be a relatively painless treatment option as opposed to a traditional anti-VEGF, which has to run a course.
Great. So, as being a entrepreneur, and this is a question that I look to ask people. What is your approach to work life balance? And that could be a very heavy question. A lot of people have different viewpoint on that. What is your take?
I don't think that, and I say this with the utmost respect for people's burnout rate and mental health. But unfortunately, I think in the entrepreneurial world, there is very little work life balance. I think that your work ends up becoming a majority of your life, and it's something that you're thinking about. It's something that you're constantly trying to push forward. And I'm sending out emails every single day, Saturday and Sunday. However, it's something because of this passion, because it's something that is so important to me, not only again in the healthcare space, but also in a family sense, in a personal matter sense. It's something that I don't really get a break from. However, I do suggest that young entrepreneurs take a little bit of time throughout their days and on the weekends to save for themselves. I don't think that there is a real balance that you could have, especially in this kind of market where you can take a significant time off of work and expect your startup to continue pushing forward.
Right. So, if you're a trailblazer, you want to bring something new into the market, into this world, then definitely you have a different schedule. You don't have a 9 to 5.
No.
You don't you don't necessarily have a 9 to 5. You wish, right? So
Exactly, but you have to be on, and when you're on vacation you have to bring your laptop and you have to be checking your emails, and it's unfortunate, but this is just the name of the game.
right. So what I look to do is, it's sometimes tough. I mark out days of the month, not
Mhm.
days, 3 4 hours. That okay, I'm going to go out with my wife for these hours, and I try to make that. I make that 90% of the times. There
Yes,
are occasions that a meeting is scheduled or something is happening that I have to reschedule, and that is usually not a good thing to have to deal with. But yeah, so you definitely have to take some time out for yourself,
agreed.
and yeah, and you have to think about this. Okay, let's for the next couple of hours, let me just block my mind from work. Yeah, if a text message comes in, okay, I'll respond to it. Okay, fine, but I'll try to be as calm and relaxed as much as possible. How about yourself?
Oh, I think that that is excellent advice. So going back to what I was saying before, so no, you can't take 3 days off to totally go offline. But yes, you certainly can take those few hours for yourself and try to make those hours as relaxing and as not work as possible. And then you go back to your life and you go back to doing it as soon as that time chunk is done.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned about finding a mentor. Did you have a mentor? Did you find a mentor? And I know you are in an accelerator.
Mhm.
But that's reasonable enough. But when you actually started off on this, did you have somebody to guide you? Your family definitely seems like they could have been very solid role models. But anybody in particular?
Absolutely. So I would say when I graduated law school, the man who really guided me forward and helped me not only graduate, but decide on what I was going to be doing with my time, what job I was going to be taking, was Saul Levmore from the University of Chicago. He used to be the dean of the law school, and now he is the man, the myth, the legend, all about torts. And he and I developed a close relationship, and he is definitely, I have to give him credit for pushing me to take the startup job, but also in helped me excel at the startup job. And then at my startup, our CEO, Ryan Beal, has been an amazing mentor for me. Ryan has two startups, both Shapiro and Dive Biosciences. Dive is a little later stage, about Series B, but having Ryan guide me through the process of starting a startup and what steps I need to take in order to continue on the path to commercialization has been invaluable.
Definitely. No, I see it that, okay, I may have made opportunities for myself, or you probably made some opportunities for yourself. But definitely, there is a role of finding the right situation, being in the right situation, and having the people to point you in the right direction, or at least help you think positive thoughts. That is even more an essential aspect, that even to think that you can make this change, or you can devote your life to a certain unidirectional approach, in a way to change all of this. It's a monumental shift, and if you don't have somebody supporting you, then it's a problem.
I completely agree. And that goes back to what we were talking about with networking. You need to have these conversations, you need to meet these people. And not only that, you have to start to build a relationship with them. If I had not had the mentors that I have, I don't know if I would still be doing this.
Exactly. Have you had a moment where you felt overwhelmed, and when you doubted yourself? Have you had a moment like that? I can mention my own, a couple of moments. Have you had a moment where you doubted yourself?
Absolutely. And that again is a part of the game. I doubt myself, I would say, every month. If you're not doubting yourself, you're not doing it right, because you have to keep questioning and you have to keep pivoting and restructuring your company as well as your personal life in order to achieve what you're looking to achieve. But I think that with the doubts come the positive feedback and the external and internal validation. So it all goes hand in hand and it's all very normal.
All right, great. So there's a limit that you can obtain, and there are positive days. There's an ups and downs that you have, and some days you are feeling up to it, and some days you are not. And what you have to do is just pull yourself together and move on. And it definitely helps you have a support group, or you are actually working with other people. It's just not you that are working on the project, and somebody else is able to pull you through. Having said this, financial issues are always a problem.
Yes.
Uh, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. What has been your approach to looking for funding? How have you been navigating this maze?
So I would say that it's always better to have a warm intro as opposed to a cold intro, but you can't put aside cold intros. I've sent hundreds of emails to hundreds of VCs and family offices and angels with a cold intro, and I've received some positive feedback from that as well. Warm intros, you get in the door, you start a conversation, and that makes it a little bit easier. But again, I'm going to highly emphasize you should be going to these conferences. For example, I'm thinking of the Resi conference, redefining early stage investments. They do, I think, 3 or 4 conferences each year, and I have made the best connections from those 20-minute meetings that I've taken at the conferences.
No, excellent. So you mentioned, you have to put yourself out there. You have to contact people, hundreds of emails, reaching out to VCs. And I actually have a video on my YouTube channel on how to find angel investors. And and you also mentioned that you need warm leads. You need to, yeah, coordinate. You need to collaborate. You have to talk to people and talk about what you're doing, and how motivated you are, and have the facts and figures ready, and talk to people. And who knows, one person may know somebody who may know somebody who will be able to invest, and who is thinking in the same breath as you are, has same sort of understanding and the same sphere that you are, and who's able to understand what you're doing more than somebody else. And then that person says, yes, I think there is potential, and that person may end up to be a partner, a investor, and not just only that, but may extend your reach much further. And that's the way to do it. And it seems like you are in the accelerator. And have you been to conferences? Can you mention a few that you feel are conferences that people should attend?
Yes. So beside the Resi conferences, which I highly recommend, please join Life Science Nation. Please get on the Resi forums. They're so useful. But I also have been to Biocom in San Diego, which was a wonderful experience. I got to pitch for Shapiro, and I met some really amazing people. And then I just got back with the Cedars-Sinai Accelerator from the Health Conference in Vegas. I would say that that's a good conference for startups, but it is huge. It is the biggest conference I've ever been to. So make sure that if you decide to go to the health conference, that you're not getting lost in the weeds.
Did you pitch yourself? And if you did, the first time around, what was the feeling? I want to know about that.
So I've pitched myself many, many times. The first time I pitched, the feeling was dread. I was so nervous. I had practiced over and over again, but I did not feel confident until I walked up on that stage. And if you do the work, the results will typically come. And so when I got up on the stage, everything went fine, and it turned out to be a really great pitch. And then pitch practice, you just get better and better with the more pitches that you do. You also learn how to pitch differently, whether you're talking with somebody one on one or you're talking to a large group of people.
No, excellent. So, yeah, you just got to start. And if you don't start, you'll never have your slide deck ready. You will
Yes.
never have your one liner ready. You will never have your elevator pitch ready.
Mhm.
So you don't start. You just gotta start, and step up to the plate. And yeah, it's just like talking. And once you get into the flow, it just eases itself up. And with my experience, the more you do this, the more questions people will ask, and that will actually help clarify your own concepts. What do you think?
Oh, I completely agree. The reason I talk so much about the prophylactic indications with P-nectide was actually a question that I got during my pitch at one of the Resi conferences about whether or not it was a prophylactic drug. I really wasn't sure what to say. And so then I took that question, I thought about it, I talked with my team. We decided on our business strategy, i.e., this would be a prophylactic measure that was given to a mass infant population as opposed to just infants who have already suffered from retinopathy of prematurity. And there you go. If I hadn't done that pitch, I would never have gotten that question, and I would never have been able to edit myself and edit our deck.
Absolutely. So I had an experience where I was pitching, and I made huge claims that we will make millions within the first year. Have, of course, you have to be confident, and you have to talk about your strengths, but you have to be humble at the same time. And even though you're saying that your math will be working out properly, you have to be humble. You have to be humble. So in your sphere, and of course this is for pharmaceuticals, and people talk about pharmaceuticals all day long, that pricing this, pricing that. But how are you envisioning this? How is the rollout going to be envisioned? Are you envisioning this as a self-pay potentially, or insurance coverage? Of course, that's going to be a whole process down the line. How have you envisioned this? And I'm not sure about your, if you provide benefit, of course, you should be definitely compensated for that adequately. What have you thought about from the monetary standpoint?
Uh, Personally, or more for the company?
Um, for the company, I believe that's, yeah, just for the company.
So for the company, we envision that this eventually will be covered by insurance. Of course, the process in understanding that will be a little later on in the game when we have finished our phase 1 trial. However, there are other options too, such as an early exit once a company has a therapeutic company has actually put their drug into people. There's a lot of big pharma interest for acquisitions. So we've envisioned that being a potential. But then we've also envisioned getting all the way through phase 3 and doing uh, a full commercialization. And again, that's why we are doing orphan drug designation and applying for a priority review voucher. That priority review voucher is still worth, I want to say, as of 2022, 110 million, which adds into our business plan. And then with orphan drug designation, you get an extra 7 years of exclusivity upon market approval. So that protects our patents, which will allow us to continue to capitalize on our invention.
Okay, great. Okay, so there is a definitely a plan, and it can go multiple different ways.
Mhm.
Having said that, this is a journey,
Yes.
and a journey that seemingly could be never ending in some situations. So,
Yes.
what is your personal mantra or philosophy that helps you keep focused and resilient? That's a, yeah, if you could, speak on that a little bit.
I would say my personal mantra is hard work is rewarded. It doesn't happen immediately and it doesn't always happen, but that's usually how things go. And so I tell myself that when things feel bleak, that if I keep knocking on doors, that if I keep making connections, that if I keep pitching, that something will give. And that's what I found thus far. So I definitely would go back to the idea that you just don't give up.
Exactly. So, possibly in line with this, if you were made the president of the United States for a term, and you had the magic wand that you could use it and say, "Yes, this is working out perfectly." How do you see this? How do you see the change that this will be bringing on, and what magical transformation that you feel that if this solution, this problem is this worked on, what change or transformation are you looking at?
I think that we will live longer and healthier lives. I think people at large will live longer and healthier lives. I think we have, and I'm going to say it in the most idyllic sense possible. And this is just coming from someone who is so connected with the company, so connected with the technology. But I think that we can beat cancer. I think we can beat obesity. I think we can beat anemia. I think that we can beat many retinitis diseases. Really, I think that we can stop reactive oxygen species generation and give people better years and longer years.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of things and reactive oxygen species, and it's a broad term. And even if I want to delve into it, I think I wouldn't know where to go with it.
Mhm.
Um, so, based on the research and what you have noticed in the field regarding this, what are you looking at in addition to just retinopathy?
So besides retinopathy, we are looking at and again, aside from retinopathy prematurity, we're looking at diabetic retinopathy, wet macular degeneration, dry macular degeneration. Outside of ophthalmology, we are looking at oncology, we're looking at anemia, we're looking at in line with anemia, other nephrology diseases. And then we've also done some research on obesity and dermatology. Really, reactive oxygen species are a big player in multiple disease states, and they often amplify the disease and make the disease more devastating towards the disease's end of life. And if we can halt that cycle and we can ameliorate what's the damage that has already been done, we can protect a lot of people and give them happier, healthier lives.
Exactly. And you may step back into microbiology and go into the mitochondria where the reactive oxygen species may be generated.
Mm-hmm.
It's the when the mitochondria doesn't work properly and they die.
Mm-hmm.
That's when a lot of these diseases and retinopathies seem to develop where there's no energy production happening properly. That's when many of these diseases take shoot. So yeah, definitely it's a few things, and I'm excited that what you guys are doing, and I'm hoping, and of course, this there has to be improvements, and it seems like that this is something to be coming out in the future, and definitely looking forward to it. I want to go over a few rapid fire questions. Are you ready for that, Laura?
I am, Umer. Go ahead and hit me.
Supposing that in 2024 you are ready and going, your product is launching. How much money are you expected to make in 2024?
If everything was perfect, right, and we fully commercialized Pnectide, I would say that the company Shapiro would be worth billions. So as an equity holder, I would be definitely making a pretty penny off of that. And then the goal would be to form my own family office with my father and start investing in other life sciences myself.
Excellent. Now, one line, what is the problem that you're looking to solve?
We are looking to solve retinopathy of prematurity with a peptide that will halt pathologic reactive oxygen species generation.
Excellent. So, what would you be doing if you were not trying to fix premature retinopathy?
I have no idea. I really don't. I think that if I wasn't doing Shipro, I would be a little bit lost.
Okay, that's fair enough. But you have a law degree. I think you have something to fall back on.
I think so too. How about this? I'm also trying to write a book in my spare time. So if I was not working on Shipro, I would just be focused on my book.
All right, excellent. What is the most helpful quote or phrase that you want to share with people?
I feel a little bit nerdy for saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and quote Dune: "Fear is the mind killer."
Excellent. No, that's actually spot on. And fear doesn't let you take the next step.
You have every right to be afraid and have those moments for yourself. But when you go out and you present yourself, fear is the mind killer. You have to be confident in what you're doing.
All right, great. Okay, what is one piece of advice for a startup or entrepreneur, and what would that be?
Don't give up. Keep knocking on doors, even when all the odds are stacked against you and you feel like you should shut the company down. If you believe in it, you continue onward.
I remember when I was uh, promoting my COVID-19 monitoring unit, a
Mm-hmm.
telemedicine product. I knocked on doors. I went down into New York, and I knocked on doors, literally doors of C-suites, and talking to people. Hey, I think I have a solution. I think I can do something better. And you got to get the word out there. You could have something valuable. If you don't market it, you don't talk about it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. Nothing is going to come to your doorstep, despite how well connected you think you may be. You have to promote it.
Excellent. So, what is one book that you want people to read, and why?
I want everyone to read Circe by Madeline Miller. It is a discussion on the Odyssey, basically through the eyes of Circe the witch. But what's really wonderful about the book is that it really is just an analysis on what it means to be human.
Great, excellent. Where can people find you, Laura?
People can find me anywhere. You can check me out on Xipiro.com, Xipiro.com. You can find me on my LinkedIn, and you can connect with me via my email, which is just my first name dot my last name at Xipiro.com. And I welcome any reach outs, whether or not you are an investor, a startup, or a young student who's looking to get some advice as they enter into the startup world.
Excellent. And how much are you looking to raise, and at what valuation?
So we are looking to raise 3.5 million to fully complete IND enabling studies, as well as do our applications for orphan drug designation and priority review vouchers. And we are valuing ourselves at 10 million to accredit for the NIH grants that we've received over the last 20 years, as well as 500,000 investment from a high net worth individual in our first seed round.
Excellent. Laura, it was a pleasure talking to you today. I think I learned a lot, and I wish you all the best, and your journey forward.
Umer, this has been so much fun. I am so grateful to be invited to your podcast. I had a wonderful discussion with you, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, bye.
I appreciate you as a valuable viewer, and thanks for watching till the very end. If you liked this, check out this podcast. I know you will love it. You can also check for more interesting links in the description. I'm Dr. Umer Khan. Looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you.